Hey, good morning, Lead Up listeners. Mike Harbour. Excited to have you here on episode 408 of the Lead Up podcast. I thought in the spirit of October, as I'm recording this, we would talk about trick or treat leadership. Now, this is not about fun and games or candy. It's the tricks and the treats that leaders often use to manipulate people versus lead people. Look, leadership is the fine art of influencing and inspiring others to do things they may not think they can do or they do not want to do. And so as leaders, we've got to learn to increase our ability to influence and impact without using tricks and treats to manipulate people. I'm going to share 3 tricks with you today, 3 treats that I've seen leaders use to often manipulate people. And I'm going to share some fixes with you that if you'll implement, if you'll work on as a leader, you'll get more effective in your ability to influence and impact others for positive good toward your goals. Now, before we get started, I want to ask you to do a couple things. One, whatever your favorite listening platform is, please leave us a review. That helps us. We want to grow. We want to continue to spread our message across the globe, and you can be a part of that. One of the true measures of leadership that I'm going to talk about today is the ability to grow others, and you help us do that by spreading your review, by spreading the message, helping us spread the message across the globe and get others more engaged in the Lead Up podcast. Something else you can do, visit our website. We've got lots of free resources, downloads that will help you lead yourself more effectively, lunch and learn tools. You can even use the Lead Up podcast as a lunch and learn tool for yourself. Maybe you're a leader of leaders. I guarantee you today's episode is going to be for you. It's going to be a lesson for you that you could bring your other leaders in. Maybe you've got 5, 10, 15, 20 other leaders that are leading others in the organization. Y'all are going to want to sit and listen to this episode together and say, okay, where are we using these tricks and these treats to manipulate people versus inspire them and influence them to do greater good within our organization? Where are we missing the mark on our mission and our values because we're using these tricks and these treats to do that? So those are a couple things that you can do. Visit harborresources.com or leaduppodcast.com. We'll take you to the same place. Look, here's the thing we need to understand. When leaders use tricks and treats to lead people, we leave people uninspired. We break the bonds of trust. We have an epidemic of trust in the world today. I mean, I don't have to tell you that. You already know that. Social media spreads it. The news media spreads it. It breaks trust. No one trusts anything anymore. We don't even know what is true and what's not true anymore in the world. And it's going to take leaders. It's going to take leadership to build the bridge back from trust. I've read some stats out there that upwards of 80% of people do not trust their leaders within their organizations. And that may not be because of you. It could be what's going on in the world. But what I do know is you're responsible for building the bridge of trust, at least within your own area and circle of influence as a leader. And there's some things that we must make sure that we don't do and that we work to do to build that bridge of trust. I've worked with thousands and thousands of leaders, hundreds of companies, and there's many things that I see I'm going to share with you today that are used as tricks and they're used as treats to try to get people to do what we want them to do versus influence them to do it or versus inspire them to do it. Look, leadership, I've often said this, leadership is what happens when you're not in the room. It's not what happens when you're there. And so if you're unable to get people to do the right thing when you're not in the room, you're probably missing the mark on your ability to influence and impact them in a positive way. You may be unconsciously practicing some of these things that I'm going to share with you today. Now, the other thing I want to share with you is many of the excuses I hear. And yeah, I just want to call them out. There are excuses. When we step into leadership, we have a responsibility, write that word down, responsibility, to bring out the best in others. It's your responsibility. Once you step into a leadership role, you have title, you have rank, whatever it is that you want to call it, you have a responsibility to bring out the best in others. So you have to rid yourself of excuses that we often make. Well, I wasn't taught how to do that. That wasn't done for me. I had to learn it the hard way. I don't have time to do that. I've already got too many responsibilities. Well, if that's the case, I just want to inspire you to go ahead and resign from your leadership role. Now, I may have lost you right there. You may be ready to quit listening to the Lead Up podcast. Look, I understand. I get you. So leadership is hard. Sometimes we get feedback that we don't like. One of the chapters in my book, one of the tactics in my book, Quit Losing Talent, is responding to feedback. Sometimes you're going to get feedback you don't like. It's how you respond to that. And so I'm giving you some feedback today. Hopefully you won't step out of leadership, but if you feel uninspired yourself, there's no way you're going to inspire others. If you feel like you don't have time to lead others and bring out the best in others, then it's probably time for you to step into more of just a doer role, a staff role, and let somebody else step up into that leadership responsibility. Now let's talk about, I'm going to share with you 3 tricks and 3 treats that I see fail over and over again. And then I'm going to give you some ideas to help you fix those, to help you correct those, so that you don't fall into these traps. And I want you to write these down, okay? As I always challenge leaders to do when you're listening to the Lead Up podcast, this is a teaching podcast. This is not one that I want you to just sit back and listen to. It may be one that you want to pause and come back to when you have some free time, or it may be one that you want to listen to over and over again. But I want you to take notes on this, and I want you to do this for yourself. Give yourself a grade. A letter grade. A, I'm excellent in that area. Or F, I'm failing in that area. And I only want you to do this behind closed doors with yourself, okay? Because if you have any area where you're not an A or a B and you need work, even if you're not an A, you need work in this area. If you give yourself an F in it, you need to get some coaching. You need to get some training. You need to continue to listen to the Lead Up podcasts. Because we teach you how to overcome all of these things, and I'm going to talk about throughout our episodes as well. But you need to get a mentor. You need to get a coach. You need to ask your company to invest some money into your development as a leader. And there's some things that we can look at, some of your metrics: high turnover, poor engagement, low customer service. If you have any of those areas, that may be a sign that you need to develop in your leadership as well. Let's look at the 3 tricks. Number 1, all companies do this. Some do it very poorly. Some do it very well. But the number 1 trick that I see companies use is the annual review. Now, I'm an idealist, and I would be okay if all companies got rid of the annual review. I think annual reviews, for the most part, are a waste of time unless you've implemented a culture where it's not used as a trick or a weapon to try to get people to do things. I've worked in organizations where I've coached leaders. I've worked with leaders where they themselves have not had an annual review, and they've worked for a company for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and they don't really know how well they're doing. But the boss often comes to them and only speaks to them when something has where they've missed the mark, where their team has missed the mark, their department's missed the mark. So the only feedback they're getting is critical feedback. And then at the annual review, it's the only coaching sessions that's done once a year. It potentially is a repeat of last year. Hey, Mike, we didn't really see anything different that we needed to add to this year's annual review from last year. We're going to give you our standard 2% raise. And so, the leader's lazy, and they don't really put any thought into the annual review. And then they ask the employee to sign off on it without any sort of conversation. Hey, read this. If you've got any other thoughts, just add to it and sign off on it, and we'll pass it along to HR. There's no creativity, no thought at all into goals that we need to discuss with the individuals that are getting the annual review. It's not individualized. It's maybe only solely focused on organizational goals that the individual had no input into. It's not personalized to help that individual get better, to grow in their personal life or their own personal development. Maybe these goals are unrealistic or unattainable or based on things that this individual getting the annual review cannot control. And so we create things that are uncontrollable, out of the realm of control for the individual. So it's used as a trick for a pay raise. Hey, if you get a good review this year, Mike, we're going to give you our 3% raise, whippy. And then we create competition within the organization, within the team. Well, this person did better than you, so we're going to give them 3%, but you keep working, maybe you'll get that 3% next year, but we're going to give you 2% this year. This is a huge failure of an organization. And if that's the way you're using annual reviews, I just recommend you don't use them at all, because you're doing more damage to your leadership and your inspiration of people. You're demotivating people. You're disengaging people. And you're creating more issues. You're creating more issues in your leadership than you would be if you just didn't do anything at all, if you didn't talk to them at all. And so give yourself a grade. Where would you say you're at when it comes to the annual review? Would you give yourself an A, or would you give yourself an F? Are you using it kind of as a weapon, as a trick to try to get people to work harder? Or are you using it as a time to inspire and set personal goals and create momentum with that individual? And again, I don't have time on this podcast to talk about how to do an appropriate annual review, but I just want you to think about that. Where would you grade yourself? What about the ones that are done for you? Maybe this is an episode you need your boss to listen to as well. Let's look at the second trick, withholding information. Now, I often see this with leaders that are weak, scared, control freaks. They think if I have all the information, I'm going to be secure in my job. What this does is we're not sharing information that's important for our employees to be able to do things effectively. We're not sharing goals. Maybe we knew about the goals for the organization for an entire year, but we didn't share those goals until the annual review for the organization. And so we're holding them hostage to standards and expectations that we have that we've never shared with them. I had an organization I was working with recently where a leader lost his job. And there was a pricing book that should have been shared with his entire employees that the employees had never shared, that he had locked away in his desk drawer. Like, he wasn't sharing this information. I had coached him up many times. Very weak leadership, very scared leadership. Thought his job security was in what he knew, not how he developed. Look, the true measure of leadership, I said this earlier, is can you develop other people? If you're withholding information, you're failing in that regard. If you're not sharing everything you know that you can, now I understand in some organizations there are things going on that we can't share yet, but we need to make sure we have clarity from our boss of when can this information be shared. Hopefully your boss is not someone who's withholding information to control the organization either. But withholding information is weak leadership. It's scared leadership. It's playing not to lose versus playing to win. It's creating mistrust by the employees. It creates an illusion of control for you, but it creates mistrust by our employees. Again, trust is at an all-time low in the world. Where would you grade yourself? Are you someone who gives everything you can, tells everything you know when you can? Or are you holding the information back? Maybe using the excuses, I don't want to overwhelm my employees. I want to tell them too much. I'm not ready to share that yet. Check your excuses. Why do you do that? Let's look at the third trick that leaders use. Disguising criticism as coaching. Hey, I just need to give you a little feedback here. And then the feedback is all negative. It's everything that an individual did wrong. I want to give you some feedback. It's judging others through our own biases or our own filter. We don't really give the other people the benefit of the doubt. Maybe we've withheld information. Maybe we've not coached them up well. But yet we're criticizing them for expectations that we haven't shared, or we're criticizing them based on one thing we see or one thing we hear versus taking the whole broad spectrum of their work or their communication into account. We're trying to control people. We're not really trying to coach people up. We're setting ourselves at a higher level than they are. Like we're attempting, and again, this is unconscious. We're attempting to make ourselves feel more important while making others feel less prepared, less equipped to do our job. See, we're trying to protect ourselves. And then we step into the wrong battles and we create mistrust. We create a gap in communication. So one of the things you have to do as a leader, I'll talk more about this in a few minutes, is check yourself. Am I coaching this individual, or am I simply criticizing something this individual did that I am not really clear on, or I didn't take time to evaluate everything that was going on, the whole work? Like a leader walks into a department and sees someone maybe sitting on the rear end, and we assume in that moment they've been sitting on the rear end for all day. We haven't been in there for the 6-7 hours that they've been busting their hump, working hard, doing their job. And we just criticize them for sitting for that 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 2 minutes. They need to rest their feet, rest their brain, re-energize, take a drink of water, whatever that is. See, we see that. And look, I've been in that place as well as a leader, because I have a high level of energy, and I want to work hard, and I want to go. But if I only walk in and evaluate people in that moment versus stepping into that and really evaluating the entirety of the situation, looking at the work that's been done, maybe stepping in more often instead of just judging in that moment, I use it as criticism instead of coaching people up, because I'm fighting the wrong battle. I'm stepping in at the wrong time. So those are 3 tricks that leaders use. Let's look at the treats. I'm going to give you a raise. Here's treat 1. I'm going to give you a raise. I want to give you more, but I'm unable to because the company just can't support that. We got to stay in alignment with our equity. Now, we often use this with our high performers. It's a treat that we dangle out there, but we really can't. I want to give you more. You deserve more. But really what we're saying is, I didn't fight for you. Hey, you're one of my high performers, and I think you deserve 5%. I think you deserve $10,000 raise. Whatever those things are. I'm just hypothetically throwing numbers out there. But we dangle this treat out there. But really, as a leader, we don't go to battle for that person. We want to give everybody equality. We want to give everybody the same raise across the board, so that no one feels left out, but yet we're leaving our high performers out. And then organizations wonder why they're filled up with a team full of low performers and they're losing their high performers, because we're not fighting for them. We don't have great expectations set up. We don't have great parameters set up for those that are doing above and beyond the work. Or we wonder why. Look, in the last 30 years, this is just true. Go look at it. The last 30 years, employee engagement has basically been flat, and in the last 24 months, it's decreased. And one of the reasons is this reason I'm talking about here. We use a raise as a treat. We dangle it out there. We don't fight for our high performers. We're not willing to give a little bit more. And then you see executives and executive teams get more. They get more raises, but they wonder why they're not getting that next level of engagement from their team, because they say, we can't give that to you this year, but we certainly are going to take it for ourselves. And look, we all have a responsibility to bring out the best in others. We all have a responsibility to try to raise the level of earnings for everybody. But when we say it's okay for one and not for others, especially those high performers on our team, we're doing damage to our credibility and our integrity in ways that are often unrepairable. So understand that treat. There's another treat I see companies use. We throw the pizza party, the ice cream party, the snow cone party, the popcorn party. We celebrate things that are good, and we expect that to be enough when people need more. Look, I'm not opposed to celebration. I believe celebration is good, celebrating progress, celebrating hitting targets and goals. But again, that snow cone, that pizza party, it's short-lived. People feed themselves already every day, and they appreciate, the thought. But there's more to serving others. The number one reason that people decide to stay with us as an organization is, do they feel valued? And the way they feel valued comes in many different ways for all the individuals that we have. And so when we have this pizza party, this ice cream party, these celebratory parties, they're good, but they fall short of the individual needs for all of our employees. I'm going to talk about how to solve that in just a minute, in a couple of the fixes that I want to share with you. The third treat is praise. And look, praise is vitally important. Praising our people, praising the individuals on our team is vitally important. But in my book, Quit Losing Talent, I write in one of our tactics is to engage in tactical praise. And there's 3 types of praise that we talk about in that chapter that are toxic. We want you to engage in tactical praise, not toxic praise. Toxic praise can be vague, it can be comparative, it can be celebratory. And good, look, leaders have great intentions. I want you to go to Amazon and buy a copy of that book. Quit Losing Talent, the expanded edition. Just look for Mike Harbour. Come to my webpage. You can learn more about that. You can do a search on the podcast here where I've taught about toxic praise or tactical praise. I don't have time to go deep into each one of those, but praise is vitally important, but done incorrectly, we create lack of trust. We create gaps. We create disillusionment. And it's a treat that we throw out there to people to praise them, to pat them on the back. But if we're not good at that as a leader, we need to learn how to do it effectively. And just an example of vague praise. Hey, Mike, that was a great job. It's vague. It's not specific. It's not valuable to that individual. What was a great job? As compared to what? Not as compared to who, which is comparative praise, but as compared to what? Help me get better. Remember, I said as a leader, we have a responsibility to bring out the best in others. And again, these are just 3 tricks and 3 treats that we use to manipulate people versus inspire and bring out the best in them to make a bigger impact. Now, I want to give you 5 fixes that I think you can implement right now, going forward, that are going to help you become a leader that influences others. And you don't manipulate, you don't use tricks and treats. Number 1, I want you to write these down, and we're not going to go deep on them. But I do want you to, again, A, B, C, D, F, give yourself a grade on those tricks and treats, but also do that with these fixes. Weekly or bi-weekly coaching. How are you doing that? Coaching focused on the person. We want to remove the tricks. We want to remove the treats. We want it to be individualized. If we do an annual review, like we talked about as one of those tricks, it should not be a surprise to that individual. Every person you lead, all your direct reports, should get a weekly or bi-weekly, at a minimum a monthly one-on-one session with a direct report with their leader. And it should be specific around, like, what are they doing well? Where do they need to grow? What do they need from you? How are they doing? How can you help them? Look, in our book, Quit Losing Talent, we have tons of resources. We even have a digital course called Quit Losing Talent. You can go to my website, harborresources.com. It if you get the course, you get the tools. We have tools for all of these to help you do one-on-ones more effectively, to help you do call-up sessions more effectively, to coach people in order to move them forward in a better way. So number one fix is just regular coaching, individualized coaching for those people on your team. This makes them feel valued. Now, some of them won't like it, but if you're not good at it, they definitely won't like it. Some of them won't like it initially. But again, you need to get some. If you haven't been coached well, hire a coach that can help you coach well, to teach you that skill. All skills are learnable. The question is, have you learned how to do it well? So the second fix is self-awareness. I'm talking about you as a leader. You need to develop self-awareness. The number one skill, there's two skills. I call them 1A and 1B. Number 1A is self-awareness. I need to know myself. I need to know my biases. I talked about that. I need to know my excuses. I need to know my areas of growth. I need to know my areas of strength. What am I doing well? What am I not doing so well? You need to hire a coach. You need to go to your CEO right now, or if you are the CEO, hire a coach. You need to go to your CEO if you're not and say, hey, I want to get better. I want to be the best leader I can be. I need you to help invest in some coaching for me. You need to get some coaching around leadership. 1A is self-awareness, developing that self-awareness. 1B is communication. We need to be a better communicator in one-on-ones and team meetings, all of those things. So developing that self-awareness, coaching for yourself, letting go of the need to control everything. Look, that control will cost you your job. I shared that earlier about an individual who was trying to control and withhold. It will cost you your job. The true measure of leadership is, can you develop someone else? Can they get the job done when you're not there? If they can't, why am I paying you as a leader? See, my job as your leader is to pay you to develop other people. Because if you win the lottery and you leave, I need somebody to be able to do your job when you leave. That's true leadership, is reciprocation or a replication of ourselves. Replication of ourselves. And there's things within you, maybe you got promoted into your leadership role because you're really good at what you do technically. But we have to let go of being really good at what we do and teach others how to be really good at what they do. That's true leadership. The third fix is fighting for your top performers. Look, the reason you're losing top performers is because they don't feel like you fight for them. We pile more onto them when we have low performers, doing the bare minimum, and everybody gets the 2 to 3% raise every year. Fight for your top performers. Take more off of their shoulders. Quit piling more on them because you know they'll get their job done. Quit being a lazy leader. Call others up. Call your low performers up or coach them off the team. You'll attract more high performers when you keep your high performers and you fight for them. But you also have to coach up those low performers. Number 4 is learn how to praise effectively. Look, just get a copy of the book. We teach exactly how to do it in the book. You can buy that tactic specifically, just that one tactic from our course. You can buy the entire course, or you can buy just that specific tactic as well on our website, harborresources.com. And then number 5, the fifth fix is understand the motivators. Understand the motivators of the individuals on your team. What motivates people to want to give you more, to want to work harder, to want to stay with your team? Understand the individual motivators. They're not your motivators, by the way. You're going to be motivated by different things. We have to quit using tricks and treats to try to lead people. That's manipulation. Understand their motivators. Use the motivators of the individuals on your teams to lead them more effectively. Look, I hope this has been a valuable lesson for you, and I hope you'll take it to heart. Give yourself a grade. Where are you at on those 3 tricks or treats? Where are you at on these 5 fixes? If I can help you, reach out to me. Mike at harborresources.com. Send me an email. Check out our website. Leave us a review on your favorite listening platform. Thanks for being a listener of the Lead Up Podcast. We'll see you next time.